Welcome, House of the Dragon fans. I am back for my episode 3 recap. Really quick, if you like the content, like and subscribe. We do reviews of House of the Dragon posting every Monday. So let's get right to it. Episode 3, Second of His Name. I feel for this episode, we essentially had three main characters that we focus on, possibly four, but really three, and King Viserys, his daughter Rhaenyra, and also Daemon. I kind of want to throw Alicent in there a little bit, but I feel she's more auxiliary than an actual main focus. So let's get to Viserys. Now, number one, we had another lovely time jump. We are 3 years in the future from the last episode. So not only have Alicent and Viserys, of course, consummated their marriage, they have a son named Prince Aegon, who is 2 years old. And not only that, Alicent is pregnant again. So, he is moving forward. He's got his son that he's been longing for years. The son is the reason why Queen Emma is no longer with us, believing in that prophecy and the fact that he had to sacrifice her even though that son died. So things are really in motion now. Unfortunately, the last 3 years I feel have really weighed on him. You can just see it in his demeanor. He reminds me a lot of King Robert from the original Game of Thrones series. He's snapping at people, he's drinking, and his overall demeanor, he's just weighed down by the politicking and really the game that goes along with holding the crown and trying to retain power. He says later on when he's talking with Otto that he feels suffocated by the politicking. And even if you look at his body is deteriorating. Remember when we saw him, in the last episode, he was using maggots to try and save his hand. Well, he's already lost two fingers now, and the rot is still going. You can look at it and see that it's still spreading. So it feels like the throne is almost cancerous to him. And, he doesn't have, he's not on death's door, but you can see the aging coming. And he mentions that to Rhaenyra that I'm not always going to be here. And the fact that I'm pushing you to get married is to, number one, solidify your claim and to make sure that you have strength behind you. That is the purpose of marriage in the Song of Ice and Fire universe, is for strengthening your alliances and protecting whatever power that you have or obtaining more power depending on who you marry. And that is why there's so many people circling the crown. We had Jason Lannister, who Viserys is trying to marry off to Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra's not having it. He's arrogant, self-centered. That's not the type of man that she wants. And she's infuriated. These last 3 years, she's been isolated. She's been feeling like she doesn't belong in this family anymore because she feels like now she's not respected because everyone is expecting Aegon to eventually become the heir. And you see a good sign of that on his second name day when he steps out of the carriage. Everybody's applauding, everybody's so happy, and she's sitting inside the carriage just seething. And I think she's looking back to the time when he named her heir those couple years ago. Wasn't no shouting, wasn't nobody clapping, wasn't nobody happy. It was a very somber moment. So she knows deep down that people don't really look at her as a legit ruler. And that makes her position precarious. Not only with Daemon, we know all that issues going on because he's having the war in the stepstones, but now her brother. So she feels like she has nowhere to go. So this is an intense rivalry and jealousy that she's feeling for her brother, who's basically 2 years old. And then that anger also spills over to her former friend Alicent, who's Aegon's mother. Their relationship has not gotten any better over these last 3 years. It's very cold. She has a very sharp tongue with her. And Alicent is trying to make amends. She's trying to say, with this whole name day and the hunt, we wish you can come. Your father wants to see you there. And she's just like, whatever. She's not um having any type of sympathy or warmth with Alicent. So just imagine this going on for 3 years. What's that's going to do to your psyche? I mean, some of us have had toxic jobs that we've been to, you know, and toxic family members that you may be in the household with. Just think about how much that wears on you daily, having to go through that. So just think about where Rhaenyra's mindset has been to have this antagonism against her family, her immediate family, for the last 3 years. So then the next question becomes, who is her confidant? You have to have somebody to rely on when you're going through something like this. And the closest that we have to that right now is Kristen Cole, who is the knight that she appointed to the King's Guard. He is really her only confidant, and I think he is very important in having her feel strengthened in where she can go going forward because she said to him she feels helpless, she feels she doesn't have any power. The word that she used or adjective is toothless. And he corrects her. He tells her that before you came along, my family had no power. We had a low standing. There was no ability to improve my family standing going forward. And you changed all that for me. And because you have done that, my house and myself, we have complete devotion to you. So just remember, if you can do something like that for an entire house, which you did with me, that means you're not toothless. That means you have power. That means you can build your own infrastructure, your own support system, your own claim. You just need to do it with the right people. And I think she's realized that. And then on the prophecy side, when she saw that white stag that approached her, and in the Game of Thrones lore, that white stag we find out in this episode symbolizes royalty and the fact that Aegon in their hunt, they couldn't find that white stag, but that white stag willingly went to her. That lets her know everything she needs to know about her claim, and that I feel like going forward, she's not going to have any more doubts about her standing. And on top of that, that's reinforced by that confrontation she had with her father in the later half of the episode, where she basically tells him, I don't feel loved by you anymore. I don't feel anything you've done for me is really had the best intentions. You remember in the episode before, she mentioned that I feel the only reason you named me heir is to get back at Daemon. You really don't see me as I am. And at some point, you're going to take this away from me. So there's no point of me feeling comfortable in trying to step into my power as a future queen. And he finally reassures her after 3 years that no, I'm not taking my claim away from you. This is yours, and I'm actually going to give you the freedom to decide who you want to marry. I do apologize for trying to set you up with Jamie, but listen, you do have to marry somebody because if you don't, it leaves your claim out there and it leaves you weakened. You at least have to do that. So that's the compromise they seem to come to. And one thing I'll say about this actress, the actress playing Rhaenyra, she does a wonderful job. Her facial expressions, she's probably the most emotionally complex character as far as how she presents herself because she's stoic, but you can just feel the emotion and the turmoil under the surface. Very kind of brooding character, but she can't hide all of her emotions, and that makes her a very, to me, sympathetic character. She has some scenes where you just see the anger flash on her face. You can see like the fierceness that'll eventually come out in her as a queen, like we saw with Daenerys. You can see it in her eyes, and then you can see the more tender moments when the people closest to her hurt her. She takes it internally and she takes it deeply. So on one hand, I'm going to be very sad to see that actress go because we do know for a fact there's going to be another time jump. So we're going to have an older actress playing Rhaenyra when she's, I guess, assuming when she's queen. But this actress right here, as far as the younger Rhaenyra, is doing a wonderful job so far. And that brings me to my next person, which will be Daemon. So this entire war has been going on for 3 years. The fact that it's been going on 3 years, that kind of lets you know it's not been going good. They have dragons. You have Corlys, who's a great strategist, and then, he has his entire navy, and they're not able to crush this triarchy and the stepstones. And we find out that this is almost kind of like how the Vietnam War was. Technically in Vietnam, I don't think we lost any particular battles, but we ended up, losing the actual focus of the conflict, which was to prevent, communism from spreading because we didn't know the land. They could always retreat underground, and in this case, they're retreating into caves. So the Crabfeeder has the lay of the land perfectly. Daemon is coming out there with these dragons, and yes, they're inflicting some losses, but they're able to go back in the caves. They're able to injure him with an arrow from the archers and forcing them into retreat. So they're not quite able to last this out. The triarchy is on their homeland. They can keep this up for decades upon decades if need be. Uh, Daemon's side cannot do that. Their rations are running low. This war is costing money. They have mercenaries that they have to pay, and the mercenaries are feeling like this is a lost cause. So it's looking very, very bad. And on top of that, from a political standpoint, it's looking very bad because this whole war was done for Daemon and Corlys to solidify their power and to show that we're the true kings of Westeros. We can actually go to war, spread the kingdom, and that's not happening. That's making them look weak. So he's in a very, very tough predicament. And it's funny that it takes hearing from his brother to do what he needs to do to win the war. And it's funny, it's a suicide mission, but he would rather do that and risk death than to get help from his brother and weaken his claim to the throne. Once he gets that message that Viserys is going to be sending ships over to you, and I'm going to help you out, little brother, and your adventure that's going awry, I'm going to save you. He's not having that. He flips out, beats up the messenger, and then he does this one final. And it's funny because this this little mission of waving the white flag amongst an entire army and then going super soldier and running through all them and dodging arrows, it was an amazing thing to see. It reminded me of good old Jon Snow from the original series, just taking on the entire army by yourself. And then at the last moment when for sure death is going to come, then the dragons come. And this is something I didn't realize. I thought Daemon's dragon was the only one out there, but the Valerians, even though they're not Targaryen, I guess they got their dragons too, because Lenore, who might be a potential uh, partner for Rhaenyra, we have to keep an eye on that. He has his own dragon, and they're going to town. Now that the Triarchy are exposed out of the caves, now they're sitting ducks for the dragon, and then the rest of the Valerian group comes through. It's a slaughter. They have the advantage now with the numbers and everything. And the coolest moment I mentioned, John, kind of that allusion to the original series. There's another one that you might not have noticed. When Daemon actually goes into that cave and fights in darkness and actually kills the Crabfeeder, that reminded me of Arya when she had to kill, her enemy um, that was attacking her when she was overseas, and she took out the candles to fight in the darkness and still emerged, as the victorious. Now it's her last lesson as far as being a faceless man. So that was really cool to see, because you have to use your imagination on how it turned out. It had to be a brutal battle because most of Damon's hair, it looked like it was cut off or seared off some type of way. It didn't happen from the dragon. So all that happened in that cave battle. And the fact that he was strong enough to not only kill the crab feeder, but to cut him in half, that takes a lot of strength. It probably didn't happen on one blow. So he sat up in there and chopped him up in the dark to drag half of his body out there. And the funny note about that picture that you're seeing on the screen right now, I actually got a warning on Twitter and I had to delete that to unlock my account. I have never had that happen before. So I don't know if it's a new thing where they're not allowing, the locking was because of excessive gore. So just keep that in mind if you're posting screenshots on Twitter. I had no idea. And I've posted horror stuff and things before, so I didn't know that that was excessive gore. Or maybe HBO flagged it. I don't know. But I thought that was a funny thing just to mention on Twitter. Just be careful of the type of bloody screenshots from House of the Dragon you're sharing on Twitter. But that was a remarkable moment. As far as the crab feeder goes, I said in the last episode review, I wasn't going to get attached to him despite how cool he looked. But I just figured he wasn't going to be around long. Just the way the battle happening this early in the series, I didn't expect him to be like a long-term villain. But he was cool to look at. We'll say that much. And the fact that he gave Daemon a run like that for his money in the darkness was very cool to see. So I think Daemon is another one that kind of has his focus now. He was able to do all this. So, because when you survive something like that, you feel invincible. He basically went out a whole army, and his move inspired his whole fleet to take down the Triarchy. So now he has a legitimate strength and claim, and he was able to do this before Viserys' forces came in. So I'm interested to see how long he's going to stay over in the Stepstones. Is he going to make that like his second base, so to speak, and to build up power there, or is he going to come back to Dragonstone and still, keep an eye on what Viserys is doing? So that's something I'm going to keep in mind with Daemon. Going back to Alicent. she's been really trying to play this straight, try and make everybody happy. Now she's under her husband, trying to make him happy. But now she's being pulled in two different directions because, normally in this type of society, once you get married off, you're not under the rulership of your father anymore. Now it's your husband. But that hasn't changed here. She's still getting pulled by her father and now also her husband. So now she's going to have to decide where her allegiance is going to be because her father, Otto, tells her that you need to make sure that he takes the crown away from Rhaenyra and puts it at the rightful heir, which should be Aegon. And Alicent wants no parts of that. She's saying, why would I want to cause that type of conflict with my son and his sister? That's going to cause chaos. And Otto was like, no, the chaos is going to be having a woman in power. You need to stick with tradition and do what you need to do because the king is not going to be able to see reason outside of you. You are the key to making him see how this should go. So that makes Alicent, in a way, one of the more powerful figures in the realm and in this show, depending on what she does. Right now she's not doing it yet, but I feel like if Rhaenyra keeps like dissing her and talking to her any kind of way, I think eventually she's going to feel comfortable telling Viserys that you need to make Aegon the future ruler. I don't know what that breaking point is going to be with them, but if Rhaenyra keeps doing this, that's where it's going to go. I'd love to get to see them back together talking about Rhaenyra and Alicent, but I feel like it's completely broken now, really because of the power dynamics. Because, you had this scene earlier where Rhaenyra didn't want to go to the feast, and she's sitting there with her court jester or song person, which was Samwell. Alicent comes in there and basically says, Sam, you need to go. And he's like sitting there frozen because no, um, Rhaenyra is telling him, no, I want you to stay and keep singing. But at some point, she says, Alicent, I am your queen. Sam, well, you need to go. And he left because he had to adhere to the queen. So that's another example for Rhaenyra that until I am actually in power, until my father is gone, this woman that was my friend, that was under me, before all this happened, before the marriage happened, is now in control of what I can do. I have to obey her. And that's another source of her anger. So a lot going on here. And as far as Viserys, I wanted to mention something else about the use of mythology and religion in this culture. The one thing about religion, you look at even the prophecies in the Bible and things like that, and even now in contemporary with preachers and cults and things like that, you can twist the word, whatever word that is, Quran, Bible, Buddhism, whatever it is. You as a human being can kind of twist it to whatever you want it to be to justify your actions. And that's what Viserys has been doing so far. He twisted it or had it twisted in his mind, and he lost his wife because of that. And he has so much grief behind that. And he thought he could correct it again by this vision of the white stag. Maybe if it's maybe it's meant for Aegon, and if so, I can switch it back and make the line right. But then he realizes again when the white stag isn't the one that's caught and it's a brown stag, even though it's big, that in his mind makes him think, okay, I've made the right decision, um, keeping the crown with Rhaenyra. But we're going to see because he keeps wavering back and forth. Who says there's not going to be another sign that has him second guessing again? He claimed to her, looked her in the eye, and said, I wavered that one time, but I'm completely sure the crown is yours and I will never take it away from you. I feel like that's ominous last words because him saying that means maybe he won't take it, but someone else might take it away from him. And then in turn, it's taken away from Rhaenyra. So that made me feel kind of uneasy, like there's going to be some type of coup that prevents Viserys from living up to his word and what he wanted to do. One thing I wanted to say about Viserys' council, I feel like the only one that he has truly in his corner is Lionel. Now, remember Lionel when he comes to him when Viserys is a little bit drunk, he asks him, "Do you want my opinion on what you should do?" And Viserys is, very sarcastic because he's thinking this is another person out for themselves, is going to try and get their son to marry my daughter and get into power. And Lionel's like, no, just like I counseled you before to marry Corlys's daughter, I'm going to counsel you now to have Lenore, his son, marry Rhaenyra, because that is the logical play that strengthens your power between both houses, and that's going to assuage some of the anger that's still lingering from you not marrying the daughter. And he had like a look of shock on his face because that was a completely selfless thing that Lionel did. He's not trying to gain more power. He seems like the only one that has the king's best interests in heart as far as doing something that's going to keep you on the crown and keep you out of harm's way. And because I feel like he's the only one that genuinely like wants the king to succeed, that makes me think he's going to die. I think at some point Otto and them are going to look at him like we don't need somebody that's not on our same page, that's scheming like us. He's got to get out of here. So I feel Lionel is going to get killed or removed at some point simply because he's one of the purest people on the council. And we know, as far as politics go, if you're a pure person and have a pure heart, it's going to eat you alive. We see that in politics today. Only the ruthless survive, and I don't see long for him. So I think that sums up everything. We've covered Lionel, covered Alicent, Rhaenyra, Viserys. I'd like this was like a little arc, so to speak, like a 3 episode arc revolving around the Crabfeeder. So now that that's been taken care of and the stepstone should be conquered now the next step is going to be who solidifies their power the best. And that's going to be between Rhaenyra and Daemon's side. So I'm interested to see like once Lenore comes back, I'm assuming he's going to come back as kind of like a war hero now, how he's going to be welcomed because I'm wondering if there's going to be any strife between him and Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole. That could be a potential love triangle right there. So I'm interested to see where that goes because now Rhaenyra is going to have in her mind she has to pick somebody, and as close as she's getting to Kristen, I believe if you're in the Kingsguard, you can't marry, if I remember that right. So that means, they can, have all the love for each other in the world, him and Rhaenyra. It can't be an official relationship, but there can be jealousy there, at least on his end, if Lenora comes around and starts getting close with Rhaenyra. So a lot to look forward to. I feel like we got a lot set. I'm wondering if there's going to be another jump. I'm kind of thinking we might not get that age jump to older Rhaenyra and company until maybe episode 5 or 6. I think that kind of feels like that should be like a mid-season switch off. So I think we got a few more episodes of the younger Alicent and Rhaenyra, which I'm enjoying. So, they're doing a great job. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know anything I missed. Um, a lot of good stuff. Oh, one thing I did miss is Otto Hightower recommending that the series marry Aegon and Rhaenyra, and the fact that he laughed at that, and I put it on Twitter. I thought he was laughing because this is at least one Targaryen that isn't really on board with incest. But somebody corrected me. He's not really laughing about that. He was laughing about the age difference. So, because remember, he married Viserys, a relative. So incest is still in full effect with the Targaryens. So I was a little bit wrong about that. And one other thing about Rhaenyra, she's been throwing a lot of shade this episode, which I really enjoyed when she was talking with Lady Redwine about, you talking a lot of shit about this war and what needs to be done, but here you are eating cake, shut her right up. So that was a little funny moment. So I'm expecting a lot more of that from Rhaenyra now that she feels comfortable that the crown is going to be hers in the future. But hope everyone is enjoying their Labor Day. Like and subscribe if you appreciated this recap. Let me know anything I missed, and I'll be seeing you next Monday when we recap episode 4. Take care and enjoy the holiday.